What if I told you the universe is actively trying to delete time? Most people believe time is a fundamental backdrop of the universe, a ticking clock that runs forever, from the Big Bang into eternity. Wrong. Not just a little wrong, fundamentally, reality-breakingly wrong. Time isn't a clock. Time is a side effect. Here is the fact that will keep you awake tonight. Time only exists because the universe is currently out of balance. The moment the universe reaches perfect equilibrium, a state called heat death, time doesn't just feel like it stops, it physically, mathematically ceases to exist. You have felt this. Every time you watch a hot cup of coffee cool down or a dropped glass shatter on the floor, you aren't just watching things break, you are watching the very engine that creates the illusion of the future. By the end of this video, you won't just understand entropy. You will feel the fragile, temporary nature of your own reality in a way that will permanently change how you look at a simple clock. Time is dying, and the universe is the executioner. Let me show you. Right now, you are sitting there, watching this screen. You feel the seconds ticking by. 1, 2, 3. It feels permanent, doesn't it? Like time is this unstoppable river pulling you forward. Stop. Look at your wrist, or the clock on your wall. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. It's lying to you. We are hardwired to feel time as a strict sequence. A past we remember, a present we feel, and a future we guess at. But from the universe's perspective, that distinction doesn't exist. Wait, that sounds completely insane, right? Let me explain. In the fundamental equations of physics, the math that dictates how planets orbit and atoms jiggle, time has no arrow. If you take a mathematical movie of a planet orbiting the sun and play it backward, the math works perfectly. Physics doesn't care which way the tape runs. Forward, backward, it's exactly the same. But your reality doesn't work like that. If I drop a ceramic coffee mug on a hard tile floor, it violently shatters into 100 jagged pieces. You never, not once in the history of the cosmos, see those pieces suddenly snap back together and jump into my hand. Why? If the base laws of physics don't care about time's direction, why is the future so aggressively different from the past? This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely. People say time is just the measurement of things moving. But that's just a label. The truth is far darker. The forward motion of time isn't the fundamental rule of nature. It is a symptom of a fatal condition the universe was born with. And to understand this terminal illness, we have to look closer at the illusion you call now. Let's talk about clocks. You probably think a clock measures time. Wrong. A clock doesn't measure time any more than a ruler measures space. A clock measures change, the rhythmic jiggle of a quartz crystal, the mechanical snap of a gear, the predictable decay of a radioactive atom. Try this right now. Close your eyes and imagine a room, not a quiet room, a perfectly frozen room. Absolute zero. No atoms wobbling, no photons moving, no chemical reactions, just dead, static stillness. Does time pass in that room? If absolutely nothing changes, before and after become completely meaningless. Time requires an event. It requires a transition from state A to state B. But hold on. Not just any change will do. That sounds impossible until you see the trick with the ice cube. Imagine a perfect, solid cube of ice sitting in a warm glass of water. You know exactly what happens next. The rigid bonds of the ice snap. The water molecules wobble and tear apart. It melts into a lukewarm puddle. Now watch what this implies for the future. Could that lukewarm puddle suddenly reorganize itself? Could those violently jiggling water molecules accidentally bump into each other in the exact perfect way to freeze back into a solid cube? Mathematically, yes. Practically, never. People say things just naturally break down because that's the way the world is. But that's just a label. It breaks down because of probability. There is only one way to arrange water molecules to make a perfect ice cube. But there are trillions upon trillions of ways to arrange them as a messy puddle. Look, the universe isn't biased against ice cubes, or coffee mugs, or your physical youth. The universe just blindly plays the odds. When things push, pull, smash, and scramble, they inevitably move from a rare organized state into a common messy state. This one-way street of messiness creates a rigid arrow. It builds a permanent, irreversible lock between the past and the future. The past is ordered, the future is scrambled. Your perception of time moving forward is literally just your brain watching the universe become continually more scrambled. But wait, if time is just the universe scrambling itself into a mess, what happens when it runs out of things to scramble? What happens when the mess is absolutely complete? To answer that, we need to unlock the secret engine of reality. Let me tell you about the secret engine that runs your entire life. It's not gravity. It's not electromagnetism. It is a ruthless, statistical monster called entropy. People say energy gets used up when you drive a car or run a marathon, but that's just a label. Energy never disappears. The universe has the exact same amount of energy today as it did at the moment of the Big Bang. So why do you need to buy gas? Why do you need to eat? Because of the secret engine of reality, the second law of thermodynamics. This isn't sci-fi. This is strict thermodynamics. Imagine a tightly packed block of dynamite. Inside, the chemical bonds are incredibly organized, low entropy, high usefulness. When you light the fuse, it violently explodes. Heat, light, and sound blast outward. The total energy is exactly the same, but it's now scattered across the atmosphere. It's permanently useless. You can never gather up that scattered jiggle of heat to blow up another rock. That transition from useful concentrated energy to useless scattered energy is what entropy actually is. Every event in the cosmos permanently increases this scattered mess. Look at your hands, right now. Feel the subtle warmth coming off your skin. That heat is your body converting highly organized food into disorganized, useless thermal energy, radiating out into the cold room. You are an entropy machine. You are physically manufacturing the future just by breathing. Wait, let me say that again because it's terrifying. Your existence actively accelerates the death of the universe. Every heartbeat, every thought, every time a star burns or a black hole swallows a planet, the universe cashes in some of its useful organized energy. And once it's spent, it is gone forever. The universe started with a massive bank account of low entropy, highly organized energy. Now it furiously spends that currency. That spending is what we experience as the flow of time. The river of time only flows forward because it is rushing downhill toward total entropy. Stop. Think about this. If the forward motion of time is literally just the universe burning up its organized energy, what happens when the cosmic fuel tank hits empty? What happens to the fabric of reality when every last drop of useful energy is spent? Let's zoom in on the microscopic machinery of this disaster. Let's zoom out from your hands and zoom all the way down into the microscopic machinery. Down to the fundamental level of reality, where temperature literally does not exist. Wait, think about it. People say a cup of coffee is hot, but that's just a label. At the quantum level, there is no hot or cold. There is only the jiggle. If atoms were the size of marbles, this is what the universe looks like. A violently vibrating mosh pit of trillions of tiny spheres. They smash, bounce, push, and wobble against each other at blistering, chaotic speeds. When a fast marble hits a slow marble, it transfers its kinetic energy. The fast one slows down. The slow one speeds up. Beautiful. Now watch what this implies for the future. Imagine 1,000,000 red marbles vibrating furiously on the left side of a box, and 1,000,000 blue marbles barely wobbling on the right side. The red side is your hot coffee. The blue side is the cold room. Remove the barrier between them. What physically happens? The furious red marbles smash fiercely into the sluggish blue ones. Energy scatters. The jiggle violently spreads out across the entire space. Within minutes, you have a lukewarm, perfectly blended, purple-looking mixture. Every single marble is now wobbling at roughly the identical average speed. This is what physicists call thermal equilibrium. Are you seeing the trap yet? The energy didn't disappear. The total amount of jiggle in the box is exactly the same, but it is now perfectly, relentlessly average. And here is the terrifying part about average. Once the jiggle is evenly distributed, macroscopic change becomes completely mathematically impossible. Look, you can't use a lukewarm, perfectly mixed box of marbles to power a single machine. You need a massive difference in energy, a hot side and a cold side to make things happen. To make an engine turn, a biological heartbeat, or a mechanical clock physically tick forward. When the entire universe reaches a state where every single atom is jiggling at the exact same sluggish speed, stop. That is the infamous heat death. No more pushing, no more pulling, no more useful energy to create a single new event, just an infinite cosmic soup of perfectly average, utterly useless wobbling. If absolutely nothing can ever happen again, what actually happens to the concept of time? Before we look at the physical deletion of time, we have to understand the lock. Why is the past permanently sealed off? Why can't we simply reverse the microscopic jiggle? If the fundamental equations don't care which way the marbles jiggle, why can't we go backward? Why is the past physically locked? This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely. People say time heals all wounds, but that's just a label. Time doesn't heal anything. Time only scrambles things further. Let me tell you about a microscopic nightmare. Imagine taking a video of a perfectly intact, beautiful ceramic vase sitting on a table. Someone bumps the table. The vase falls, smashes into 1,000 pieces, and scatters dust everywhere. You watch the video backward. The dust magically sweeps itself up. The jagged shards fly off the floor. Wait, they snap perfectly together in midair. The vase lands gently back on the table. It looks absurd, doesn't it? But mathematically, it is physically possible. If every single molecule of air, every speck of dust, and every microscopic shard of ceramic perfectly reversed its velocity at the exact same instant, the vase would rebuild itself. But hold on, the plot gets infinitely weirder. To reverse that single smash, you don't just need the ceramic shards to fly backward. You need the microscopic sound waves that bounced off the walls to magically converge back on the crash site. You need the tiny amount of heat generated by the friction of the floor to instantly flow back into the cold shards. You need the entire room, every atom, to flawlessly coordinate a massive, impossible reversal. Look, the probability of 1 billion trillion molecules accidentally syncing up to perfectly reverse an event is 0. Not practically 0, essentially 0 over the entire lifespan of the cosmos. There is one way to arrange a shattered vase back together, but there are an infinite, crushing number of ways to keep it smashed. This isn't sci-fi. This is strict thermodynamics. The sheer, overwhelming statistical improbability of a smashed vase rebuilding itself is what creates the arrow of time. The past is simply the state where the universe was highly organized. The future is simply the state where the universe is mathematically more probable, more scattered, more messy. Stop. Think about what that actually means for your memories. You can only remember the past because your brain is currently a highly ordered, low-entropy machine recording the scattering of reality. You can't remember the future because the future hasn't been scrambled yet. Your entire existence is tracked, surfing the leading edge of a spreading, messy wave. But what happens when the wave finally flattens out entirely? Let's look at the terrifying scale of the great unwinding. If you scale up the smashed vase to the size of the entire universe, you get a chilling picture. People say the universe is vast and eternal, but that's just a label. It's actually a tightly wound spring that has been slowly uncoiling since the Big Bang, and it's not going to uncoil forever. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. Every single tick of a clock, every fusion reaction in the core of a star, every supernova that violently rips through space, they all permanently steal a microscopic fraction of the universe's remaining order. They convert useful, low-entropy energy into useless, scattered heat. The universe is literally bleeding out its ability to do work. Now watch what this implies for the future. Look up at the night sky. The glittering blanket of stars feels incredibly stable. But those stars are just giant, raging entropy engines, furiously burning through pristine hydrogen gas. They are turning it into heavier elements, releasing a blinding torrent of photons that scatter into the freezing void of space. Wait. What happens when the hydrogen runs out? It doesn't magically replenish. The stars will flicker. They will violently collapse or slowly puff away their outer layers. In a few trillion years, the last star in the universe will exhaust its fuel. The lights will simply go out. This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely. You think of space as a cold, dark place that stars happen to live in. But stars are the only things creating the difference between hot and cold. Once the final star dies, the universe plunges into an era of terrifying darkness. Galaxies will unravel. Planets will freeze solid and drift aimlessly away from their dead, glowing stellar corpses. This isn't sci-fi. This is strict thermodynamics. The remaining matter will clump together into cold, dead husks, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes. The temperature of the universe will slowly, agonizingly drop closer and closer to absolute zero. The jiggle of the atoms will become sluggish. The difference between a hot place and a cold place will almost entirely vanish. But hold on, the plot gets infinitely weirder. Even after the last star dies, there is still one massive source of incredibly dense, organized energy left in the cosmos: the black holes. Are you seeing the trap yet? The ultimate, terrifying vacuum cleaners of reality aren't going to save us. They are going to finalize the deletion of time. Imagine a universe that is almost entirely dark. The stars are dead, the galaxies are ripped apart by expansion, the last planets are frozen rocks drifting in eternal blackness. People say a black hole is a hole in space, but that's just a label. It's actually the densest, most highly ordered clump of raw gravity and matter left in existence. In a dying, freezing universe, black holes are the last bastions of concentrated energy. Look, they pull in wandering dead stars and crush them violently down to a point. They rip apart frozen gas and swallow it whole. They hoard the final remaining scraps of low-entropy energy. But remember the relentless rule of the cosmos. Nothing escapes the secret engine of reality, not even a black hole. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. Even these monstrous cosmic vacuum cleaners are slowly, agonizingly bleeding out their energy. Through a microscopic process called Hawking radiation, black holes actually glow. It's not a bright, visible glow. It's a subatomic, impossibly faint trickle of heat. They sit in the freezing void, furiously evaporating away their unimaginable mass. Now watch what this implies for the future. A black hole doesn't just evaporate quickly. It takes an incomprehensible amount of time. Trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years. A number with so many zeros that your human brain literally cannot process its magnitude. But nature is patient. The universe doesn't care how long it takes to balance the equation. One by one, over timescales that make the current age of the universe look like a split-second flash, the black holes will evaporate. They will shrink, get microscopically hotter, and violently explode into a final shower of scattered particles and radiation. Stop. Think about what that actually means for your memories. When the last supermassive black hole finally detonates and scatters its final burst of heat into the void, the universe will be empty. There will be no more concentrated energy left anywhere, no dead stars, no frozen planets, no black holes, just a thin, microscopic mist of wandering photons, electrons, and positrons, the scattered, useless ashes of a dead cosmos. This isn't sci-fi. This is strict thermodynamics. The jiggle will be perfectly, mercilessly average. The difference between hot and cold will be exactly zero. The entire universe will reach maximum entropy. The great unwinding will be complete. But hold on, the plot gets infinitely weirder, because in this final perfectly balanced mist of particles, something terrifying happens to the very fabric of reality. The photon era begins. Let me tell you about the most terrifyingly quiet era in the history of the cosmos. After the black holes violently pop out of existence, the universe is just a soup, a thin, impossibly cold, perfectly uniform soup of photons and a few stray subatomic particles. People say empty space is just nothingness, but that's just a label. In this era, the universe is vast, and the particles are incredibly far apart. The expansion of space has stretched the remaining light so much that it is essentially invisible. The temperature of this soup? It hovers at a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. In this final perfect soup, nothing interesting can ever happen again. The jiggle is perfectly uniform. There are no hot spots, no cold spots, no clumps of matter, no gravity pulling things together to spark a fusion reaction. Now watch what this implies for the future. Imagine a perfectly smooth, infinite ocean of lukewarm water. No waves, no currents, no wind. Just a flat, dead mirror stretching into eternity. A single photon drifts through the void. It might travel for trillions of years without hitting another particle. And even if it does collide, the transfer of energy is completely meaningless. Why? Because both particles have the exact same incredibly low average energy. The collision doesn't create a spark. It doesn't build a molecule. It doesn't break a bond. It just violently swaps identical states. A perfectly average red marble hitting a perfectly average blue marble in an infinite box of average marbles. This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely. Because in a universe where every single point is exactly identical to every other point, and every particle is exactly identical to every other particle, how do you measure a transition? How do you define an event? If atoms were the size of marbles, this is what the universe looks like. An infinite, unchanging, perfectly blended, purple-looking mist. Stop. Think about what that actually means for your memories. If a physical event is the fundamental requirement for the passage of time, an absolute perfect equilibrium means no physical events can ever occur. What actually happens to the fabric of time? Are you seeing the trap yet? Because the universe isn't just slowing down. The universe is actively, mathematically preparing to physically delete the arrow of time entirely. Let me tell you about the physical deletion of time. People say time is the fourth dimension, but that's just a label. Because in this final, perfectly balanced mist of particles, the universe physically, mathematically loses its ability to tell time. Think about a clock, any clock. A digital watch needs a battery with high and low energy states. A pendulum needs gravity and kinetic energy to swing back and forth. Even an atomic clock needs the tiny rhythmic wobble of a specific atom. But remember the secret engine of reality. In the photon era, every particle is identical. Every microscopic jiggle is perfectly average. Look at your hands, right now. Imagine them dissolving into a mist. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. Without a difference in energy, there is no physical mechanism left in the cosmos that can tick forward. There is no before and after, because the universe is perfectly, identically the same at every single moment. Now watch what this implies for the future. Imagine taking a snapshot of the universe in this final era, a vast, dark, cold mist. Now take another snapshot 1 trillion years later. They look exactly the same. Wait, mathematically you can't even say 1 trillion years have passed, because years require a planet orbiting a star. But there are no planets, there are no stars, there is no physical measuring stick left. This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely, because time doesn't just feel like it stops. In a universe of maximum entropy, time physically ceases to exist. The arrow of time, the irreversible forward march from order to chaos, vanishes completely because there is no more order left to destroy. The cosmos has scrambled its entire bank account of useful energy into a perfectly flat, dead equilibrium. This isn't sci-fi. This is strict thermodynamics. The universe doesn't freeze. It doesn't collapse. It just violently, completely forgets. It loses the physical capacity to define now or then. If you can't measure a transition, if you can't mark an event, then time is literally a meaningless concept. Stop. Think about what that actually means for your memories. The very fabric of reality that allowed you to live, breathe, and remember the past was just a temporary anomaly, a brief, violent spark of order burning itself out in a cosmos destined for perfect stillness. But hold on, the plot gets infinitely weirder. Because if time is just a temporary side effect of the universe unwinding, are you seeing the trap yet? What does that actually mean for the fleeting, incredibly rare moment you are experiencing right now? Let's look at the terrifying, profound truth of your own existence. Let me tell you the deepest truth about the present moment. People say the present is a gift, but that's just a label. The present isn't a gift. It is a mathematical anomaly, a temporary, violently burning flash of organization in a universe destined for eternal darkness and perfect equilibrium. Look at your hands again, right now. Feel your pulse. Every beat of your heart is a microscopic explosion of order into chaos. You are a highly complex, fragile machine built entirely out of the universe's remaining precious low-entropy fuel. Your ability to think, to remember a childhood memory, to feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, all of it is only possible because the universe is currently out of balance. You exist in the narrow, glorious window between the explosive order of the Big Bang and the freezing, dead stillness of heat death. Here's the part nobody tells you about your clock. You are literally made of time. You are the physical embodiment of the universe unwinding itself. Now watch what this implies for the future. We are afraid of time passing. We hate getting older. We hate watching things break and decay. But that decay is the exact same mechanism that allows you to exist in the first place. Without the relentless destructive march of entropy, the universe would be a frozen, static picture. Nothing would ever happen. This is where your everyday intuition fails you completely. The erasure of time isn't a tragedy. It is the inevitable settling of a cosmic equation. It's not just entropy. It's the profound, terrifying beauty of a temporary reality. Stop. Think about what that actually means for your memories. Every moment you experience is a tiny, irreversible step toward the final deletion of time itself. So the next time you drop a coffee mug and watch it violently shatter, don't just see a broken cup. See the engine of reality. See the universe furiously spending its last remaining coins of order to buy you exactly one more second of now. If you want to keep exploring the terrifying mechanics of reality, hit subscribe. Because the universe is slowly dying, but we still have a lot of time left to figure it out.